well-dressed man with sharp features and a pride that dripped from every word he spoke. He often reminded everyone that he came from a line of wealth and influence. That evening, he cornered Stella in the hallway. "You think cooking a few meals makes you fit to stand in this house?" he said with a cruel smirk. "Don't fool yourself. You're nothing but a charity case. Joshua will tire of you soon enough." Stella's throat tightened. She tried to walk away, but Richard's words followed her like shadows. When Joshua found her later, sitting quietly in the garden, he sat beside her. "They've been saying things again, haven't they?" Stella's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them. "It doesn't matter. I'm used to people looking down on me." Joshua's jaw tightened. "It matters to me. You're under my roof, and as long as you're here, no one, no cousin, no servant has the right to insult you." For the first time, Stella looked at him with a mix of gratitude and something else, something deeper, something unspoken. But she quickly lowered her gaze, afraid of what it might mean. That night, as she lay in bed, Stella whispered a prayer. "Lord, why have you placed me here? What is your plan for me? I am but a simple girl. Please guide my steps." Her heart was torn. She was grateful for Joshua's kindness, yet the weight of judgment from others pressed heavily upon her, and deep inside, a quiet fear grew. What if they were right? What if Joshua one day saw her the same way as a burden too heavy to keep? Little did Stella know, the days ahead would test her in ways she never imagined. The following days in Joshua's mansion unfolded like a strange dream for Stella. She lived in a place she had once only glimpsed from a distance through the tinted windows of cars that sped past the poor quarters of the city. She often caught herself touching the smooth walls, the velvet curtains, or the shining silver cutlery at the dining table, as though confirming it all was real. But reality carried both comfort and sorrow. Joshua had arranged everything for her care. A personal room, though not as large as the suites his relatives occupied, still seemed to Stella like a palace chamber. A bed softer than any she had ever slept in cradled her at night. There was a small balcony where she could see the garden stretching with flowers and trimmed hedges, glowing under the afternoon sun. For the first time in her life, Stella felt sheltered from hunger, cold, and fear. Yet strangely, she also felt imprisoned by the walls of luxury. The household did not share Joshua's warmth. The staff obeyed Joshua's commands, but their eyes told different stories. Some looked at her with pity, others with disdain. The whispers carried through the hallways like tiny arrows, piercing her heart. "She doesn't belong here," one maid murmured to another when they thought Stella was too far to hear. "Joshua is too kind for his own good," another said. "Taking in a poor stray girl, what will people say?" Stella tried to ignore it, but words have a way of settling deep into one's chest, no matter how much one resists. She would sit by her window at night, staring at the moon and asking herself, "Why am I here? Am I a guest, a burden, or just a passing charity?" Joshua, however, treated her differently. He checked on her often, though not in a smothering way. Sometimes he found her in the garden and asked, "Are you comfortable, Stella? Do you need anything?" She would bow her head politely and reply, "I have more than I deserve, sir. Thank you." He disliked that she called him sir. "Joshua is fine," he corrected her gently. But Stella could never quite bring herself to say it. To her, he was not just a man. He was a saviour, a world apart, someone she respected too deeply to speak his name casually. One evening, as the sunset painted the sky with gold and crimson, Joshua invited her to sit with him in the library. The room smelled of leather and old paper, with tall shelves climbing toward the ceiling. Stella's eyes widened. She had never seen so many books in one place. "You like to read?" Joshua asked, noticing her gaze. I barely know how, Stella admitted softly. Shame tinged her cheeks. In the village, we didn't have many books. My father taught me a little before he passed. Joshua's heart stirred. He pulled a book from the shelf, its cover bound in green cloth. Then we'll start small. I'll help you. And so, the lessons began. Every evening, Stella sat with him in the library, her delicate voice stumbling over words, her brow furrowed in concentration. Joshua was patient, guiding her gently, correcting her with kindness. Their moments were quiet, almost sacred. With each letter she mastered, Stella felt her world expand, and with each smile she gave, when she finally read a sentence correctly, Joshua felt a strange warmth bloom in his chest. But shadows grew alongside the light. Joshua's cousin Miriam had returned to the mansion from her travels abroad. A sharp-eyed woman with elegance stitched into every gesture, Miriam had always been protective of Joshua, perhaps too protective. When she first saw Stella walking timidly down the grand staircase, Miriam's lips tightened into a thin line. "Who is this?" Miriam asked Joshua in the hall, her voice honeyed yet edged like a blade. "This is Stella," Joshua answered calmly. "She's staying here for now." Miriam's gaze swept over Stella's plain dress and folded hands. The silence that followed felt like a verdict. "How generous of you, cousin," Miriam finally said, though her tone carried no warmth. From that moment, Stella felt Miriam's eyes on her at every turn. At dinners, Miriam asked sly questions, each dipped in poison. "So, Stella, what do you plan to do with yourself here? Surely you won't spend your days wandering the halls." Stella lowered her head. I wish not to be a burden." "A burden?" Miriam laughed lightly, sipping her wine. "Oh, my dear, if you are not careful, that is exactly what people will think." The staff, emboldened by Miriam's disapproval, grew colder. Doors no longer opened as quickly when Stella approached. Meals were served with stiff politeness instead of quiet kindness. Even the gardener, who once nodded at her with a smile, now avoided her eyes. Stella's heart sank. She began retreating into herself, spending long hours in her room or the library when Joshua was around. She thought of leaving many times, even packing the small bundle of clothes she owned. But each time she looked toward the gate, fear gripped her. Out there was hunger and danger. In here was scorn but also safety. She was torn between two worlds, belonging to neither. Joshua noticed her silence growing heavier. One night, as the rain tapped gently against the windows, he found her sitting by the fireplace, staring into the flames. "Stella," he said softly, sitting beside her, "you've been quiet lately." She hesitated, then whispered, Maybe I shouldn't be here. Your family does not approve. The staff does not approve. I am only causing you trouble." Joshua's jaw tightened. "Do not say that. You are here because I want you to be safe. Their opinions do not matter to me." "But they matter to me," she confessed, tears shining in her eyes. "I hear their whispers. I feel their stares. I don't belong in your world, Joshua." He looked at her for a long moment, his heart aching at her pain. He wanted to tell her she did belong at least to him, but words failed him. Instead, he placed a comforting hand over hers. "You belong where you are cherished, and here you are." For the first time, Stella dared to meet his eyes. In them, she saw sincerity, warmth, and something she could not yet name. Her chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with something gentler, something that frightened her more than the cold streets ever had. That night, when she prayed by her bed, her voice trembled. "God, why did you bring me here? What path are you writing for me? Please, give me strength to walk it." And though no voice answered, Stella felt a quiet stirring in her heart. She was not sure if it was faith, hope, or the first spark of love. Whispers moved faster than the wind. What began as a private insult in Joshua's mansion had spilled into the world outside. One of his relatives, angry at the way Joshua defended Stella, told friends in the city. By the end of the week, Stella's name was on the lips of strangers she had never met. "She's nothing but a street girl who bewitched him," the market women said, their voices sharp like knives. "Joshua is a fool to let a poor wanderer sit at his table," men murmured in bars, sipping their drinks and shaking their heads. Stella heard it all. Even when she stayed within the tall gates of the mansion, the noise found its way in. The staff whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. Their eyes followed her whenever she walked across the marble floors. Some would stop talking when she entered the room, pretending to be busy polishing silverware or arranging flowers. But Stella knew they were talking about her. Joshua tried to shield her. "Don't mind them," he told her one evening as they sat by the fountain in the garden. The water glistened under the moonlight, but Stella couldn't enjoy the beauty. Her heart was heavy. "They don't know you like I do. They don't know your kindness, your strength." "But they are not wrong," Stella whispered, her eyes downcast. "I don't belong here. I was born in dust, not diamonds. Every step I take in this house, I feel like I'm stepping on ground that isn't mine." Joshua reached out and touched her hand gently. "You belong where your heart is respected. And in this house, as long as I breathe, you will be respected." His words warmed her, but they could not silence the world. The true blow came one afternoon when Joshua held a charity event. The mansion was filled with wealthy guests, men in dark suits and women in gowns that sparkled like stars. Stella stayed in the background, unsure if she should even be there. But Joshua insisted. "Walk with me," he said. "Let them see you by my side." At first, people only stared. Some smiled politely, others raised eyebrows. Then, one woman, proud and sharp-tongued, spoke loudly enough for all to hear. "So this is the girl? The one everyone talks about? My, Joshua, you've fallen low. A homeless girl rescued from the street. Does she polish your shoes too?" Laughter broke out. Stella froze, her face burning. She wanted the floor to open and swallow her whole. Joshua's jaw tightened. "Enough," he said firmly, his voice echoing across the hall. "If anyone here cannot respect Stella, then they have no place under my roof." The hall went silent. The woman's smile faded, and whispers began again, softer this time, but no less cruel. Stella's heart pounded. She excused herself and fled to her room, tears streaming down her cheeks. That night, she stood by the window, staring at the distant city lights. "God, why?" she whispered. "Why bring me here only to shame me? I asked for nothing. I only wanted to survive. Now I am drowning in a world that hates me." Joshua found her there, her shoulders shaking. He placed a blanket around her. "Don't cry," he said softly. "They don't see what I see." "But their words cut me," she said through tears. "Each word is like a stone thrown at my soul. I can't stay, Joshua. I don't want to ruin your name." Joshua looked at her, his eyes filled with a mix of anger and pain. "Do you think I care for their approval? My name, my wealth, none of it matters if I can't stand for what is right. Stella, you saved me that day. You gave me life when I was bleeding and broken. How can I let others take away the worth of yours?" Stella met his gaze, and for a moment her heart trembled with something she dared not name. But the scandal only grew. Newspapers began to write about her, twisting the story. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire Joshua and the street girl. Love or madness? From rags to mansion? Who is Stella?" Stella's face was painted in words she had never spoken, stories she had never lived. Strangers judged her, mocked her, envied her, all without knowing her heart. It became too much. One dawn, before the sun rose, Stella packed the few clothes she had. She slipped quietly through the servants' corridor and out the side gate. Her heart broke with every step, but she told herself it was better this way. Better to leave before the world destroyed her completely. When Joshua discovered her absence, rage and fear clashed within him. He sent his men to search, but Stella had vanished into the city's shadows. For the first time, Joshua felt powerless. He had fought enemies in business, rivals in power, but he did not know how to fight the emptiness of losing her. The air around Joshua's mansion had grown heavier with each passing day. What had once felt like a refuge for Stella now seemed like a palace of whispers. The servants had learned to quiet their voices when she entered, yet she could feel their eyes following her, measuring her steps, judging her worth. Stella tried to ignore it. She clung to small acts of kindness, arranging flowers in the sitting room, helping the cook prepare soup, or mending small tears in the curtains with her careful hands. But no matter how much she tried, there was always a shadow in the corners of the mansion, Joshua's family. Joshua's aunt, a stern woman with sharp features, had begun to visit more often. She rarely spoke to Stella directly, but her eyes told enough of the story, cold, cutting, full of silent disapproval. Joshua's cousin, Adrian, was even bolder. He mocked her openly when Joshua wasn't around. "Tell me," Adrian said one afternoon, as he leaned casually against the marble staircase, "what is it like to walk barefoot in the dirt one day and then sit among crystal chandeliers the next? Must be confusing, isn't it?" Stella froze, her hands clutching the tray she carried. Adrian's smile was cruel, his words dripping with venom. "Don't mistake this generosity for belonging. You are a guest, nothing more. The day Joshua wakes up from this illusion, you'll be out." Stella lowered her gaze, refusing to give him the satisfaction of her tears. She carried on quietly, but her heart trembled. Joshua noticed her change. He could tell when Stella's smile was forced, when her shoulders seemed heavier. One evening, as they walked through the garden, he finally stopped her. "Stella, you've been distant. Talk to me. What's wrong?" Her lips quivered. She wanted to speak, to pour her pain into his hands, but something held her back. She didn't want to create conflict between him and his family, so she simply shook her head and said softly, "Nothing, Joshua. I'm just tired." But Joshua wasn't convinced. His eyes searched hers, seeing the storm she was trying to hide. "If someone hurt you," he said firmly, "tell me." She smiled faintly, touched by his protectiveness, but again she whispered, "I'll be fine." That night, as Stella lay in her room, tears slipped silently down her face. She prayed softly, her hands clasped together. "God, why am I here? Why did you save me that day, if it was only to face more pain? Give me strength, Lord. Show me what to do." Meanwhile, Joshua stood at his balcony, gazing at the stars. He had never felt this way about anyone before. Stella's innocence, her strength, despite her suffering, it drew him in like a flame. Yet he knew the path ahead was full of battles. His family would never accept her easily. Society would talk. Investors, partners, even friends might mock him. But his heart was no longer his own. It belonged to Stella. The first crack of confession came the next morning. Joshua found Stella in the library, arranging books to distract herself. He walked in quietly, but his presence filled the room. "Stella," he began, his voice low, steady, "I need you to hear me." She turned, surprised by the seriousness in his tone. "You may feel unwanted here. You may think you don't belong, but you do. You belong here with me. I don't care what anyone says." Her breath caught in her throat. For a moment, she forgot how to speak. His words sank deep, warming her, yet frightening her at the same time. Joshua, she whispered, shaking her head. Don't say things you'll regret. I'm not like you. I don't come from your world. He stepped closer, his eyes burning with sincerity. I don't want someone from my world. I want you. Stella's heart raced. 1,000 doubts screamed inside her. The scorn of his family, the cruelty of his cousin, the endless whispers. But louder than all of that was the steady rhythm of Joshua's voice and the truth in his eyes. She turned away, tears stinging her eyes. Please, don't make this harder. I can't bear to be the reason your family hates you. Joshua's jaw tightened, his hand curling into a fist at his side. Let them hate me if they must. I will not let them take you away. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unspoken emotions. Stella didn't answer, but her tears told him enough. Her heart was torn between fear and love, gratitude and despair. That night, in the quiet of her room, Stella whispered to herself, Why me? Why does he care for me? I am nothing compared to his world. But even as she tried to push the thought away, a small, dangerous hope bloomed in her heart. For the first time since her parents' death, Stella felt that perhaps she wasn't invisible anymore. Someone saw her, someone chose her, and that someone was Joshua. The mansion, though grand and glittering, had turned into a cage for Stella. At first, she thought things would get better after Joshua brought her in, but days passed, and the atmosphere grew heavier. His aunt made sly remarks at every opportunity, questioning Stella's manners, her clothes, even the way she held a spoon. You must understand, the aunt would say sweetly, though her eyes were sharp as knives. We have standards in this family. Adrian was worse. His disdain wasn't hidden behind polite smiles. Whenever Joshua left the room, Adrian would lean close and whisper cruel things. You don't belong here. Do you think Joshua will marry someone like you? You're just a temporary distraction. Stella bore the words in silence. She told herself not to cry, not to show weakness, but each insult burrowed deeper, awakening old wounds she thought had healed. At night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, asking herself if perhaps Adrian was right. Joshua, however, noticed. He saw the way Stella's shoulders stiffened at the table, the way she lowered her gaze when spoken to. He wasn't blind. And though he held his tongue, his anger simmered like fire under ice. One evening, as Stella wandered the vast gardens alone, she overheard a conversation between the aunt and Adrian. They spoke of her as if she were nothing but a stain on the family name, plotting ways to drive her out. Her heart sank, but at the same time, something inside her hardened. She realized she couldn't simply endure. The shadows in the mansion were growing too thick, and she feared the day Joshua would be forced to choose between her and his blood. The air in the mansion grew colder with each passing day, though the fires burned bright in every room. Stella felt as if invisible walls pressed closer and closer around her, leaving her gasping for air. Joshua's love was her only comfort, but even that love was being tested by the constant whispers, the pointed stares, and the cruel traps set by Adrian and the aunt. She wanted to be strong, but strength alone couldn't erase the sting of humiliation. One night at dinner, the aunt deliberately spilled wine across Stella's dress, pretending it was an accident. Adrian laughed aloud, sneering, "Red suits you better. At least now you look like you belong." Joshua's hand slammed against the table. The room fell silent. His jaw clenched. His eyes burned with restrained fury. "That's enough," he said, in a tone colder than winter. But his aunt only smirked. "Oh, Joshua, don't tell me this. Girl has bewitched you so much that you forget your place. Our family, Joshua interrupted sharply, does not get to decide who I love." The words hung in the air, like thunder. Stella sat frozen, her heart hammering in her chest. For a moment she thought Joshua would truly defend her, that he would shield her once and for all. But instead, the conversation was buried under the clinking of silverware and the forced continuation of the meal. That night, Stella cried quietly in her room, muffling her sobs into the pillow. She knew Joshua loved her, but she also knew his silence allowed his family's cruelty to continue. Love alone was not enough. It needed action, courage, sacrifice. Days later, the breaking point finally arrived. Joshua hosted a small gathering for business associates, and Stella, dressed in a simple but elegant gown, stood by his side. For a brief moment, she felt proud. She felt seen. She thought perhaps this was progress. Perhaps Joshua was ready to present her not as an outsider, but as someone important to him. But Adrian ruined it. He raised a glass and, in front of the guests, said with mock cheer, "To my brothers, charity." Only Joshua could turn a street beggar into a lady at his table. Laughter rippled across the hall from those who didn't know better, but the venom in Adrian's voice was unmistakable. Stella's chest constricted, her vision blurred with shame. Joshua's chair screeched as he stood. His fist crashed against the table, sending glasses trembling. His voice, loud and unyielding, echoed across the hall. The laughter died instantly. Every eye turned toward him. Joshua's chest rose and fell as he glared at his brother. "You think you can insult her in front of me? In front of everyone? I won't allow it. Not anymore." Adrian scoffed, though his face paled. "She's beneath us, Joshua. You know it. I know it. Are you really going to throw away your name, your bloodline, your future, for her?" Joshua stepped forward, his voice trembling with both anger and conviction. "I'd throw away everything before I let you destroy her. Stella is worth more than all the wealth and pride you cling to. She is my choice. She is my heart. And if you cannot respect that, then you are no brother of mine." The words struck like lightning. The aunt gasped, clutching her pearls. Adrian's lips twisted into rage. The guests sat in stunned silence, the air so heavy it seemed to press down on every chest. Stella felt tears prick her eyes, but this time they weren't tears of pain, they were tears of release. For so long she had carried the weight of their disdain alone, and now Joshua had lifted it from her shoulders, declaring to the world that his love was not a secret to be hidden, but a truth to be shouted. Adrian lunged forward, his face dark with fury. "You'll regret this, Joshua. You'll regret the day you chose her over us." But Joshua did not flinch. He stood tall, unshaken. "The only regret I'll ever have is letting your poison linger this long. If you cannot accept her, then stay out of my life." The aunt sputtered. "Joshua, how dare you? How dare I?" Joshua cut in, his voice like a blade. "How dare you treat the woman I love as if she's unworthy? All she has ever shown is kindness, dignity, and strength. She belongs here more than either of you, because she carries something you've long forgotten: compassion." The hall remained frozen in silence, broken only by the crackling of the fireplace. Joshua turned to Stella, his expression softening. He extended his hand. "Come. You don't need to endure this any longer." Her trembling hand slipped into his, and for the first time she felt safe. Truly safe. The weight of her shame lifted as he held her before everyone, refusing to let her be diminished any longer. They walked out together, leaving the stunned guests, the sputtering aunt, and Adrian's burning rage behind. Each step felt like a liberation. Stella's heart raced, but for once, it wasn't from fear, it was from hope. When the doors shut behind them, Joshua stopped and turned to her. His hands cupped her face gently. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have done this sooner." I should have fought harder, protected you better. But hear me now, Stella. I will never let them hurt you again. You are my future. No one, not even my blood, can take that away." Her tears flowed freely, but they were tears of joy, of healing. "I don't need riches or mansions," she said softly. "I only need you to stand with me." And with the weight of his vow, Joshua leaned in and kissed her, sealing the promise under the vast, star-studded night beyond the mansion's gates. The days ahead would not be without struggle. Adrian's resentment still burned, and the aunt would never truly accept her. But Stella no longer feared their shadows, because she knew she was no longer alone. Joshua's love had become her shield, his defiance her sword. And though the world whispered against her, she carried a new strength in her heart, the strength of knowing that she was seen, valued, and chosen. The mansion, once a prison of whispers and scorn, was now just a building behind them. What mattered was the road ahead, the one they would walk together, hand in hand. And for the first time since her life had been torn apart, Stella believed in a future brighter than her past.